Number 3. JeffsNuts. In August 2018, Susan Rainwater lived on a farm outside of Edenville, Washington. The 66-year-old mother and grandmother was a businesswoman and Arabian horse breeder. She and her husband owned an independent insurance agency. On the morning of August 9, 2018, Rainwater set off on a bike ride. Around 10:15 a.m., her bicycle was found abandoned on the northbound side of State Route 7. Upon closer inspection, it was clear that the bike had been in some type of accident. In the ditch next to the road was the dead body of 66-year-old Susan Rainwater. The police were called. They determined that Rainwater was struck from behind by a large vehicle. It was thought it was a black truck. Not a piece of metal was found at the site. It wasn't from the bicycle, so the police thought it was from the truck. The police decided to release a photo of the piece of metal. It ended up on the subreddit, "What is this thing?" It led to dozens of responses. One of them was a user named JeffsNuts. On August 10th, the day after Susan Rainwater was killed, he wrote that he had been a car inspector. He believed it was a piece from the headlight of a mid-1980s Chevy truck. He found a picture of the piece as an example. The Washington State Police were monitoring the subreddit and noted JeffsNuts posting. The same day, the police got a tip that the driver was 37-year-old Jeremy Thomas Simon, who lived in Roy, Washington. He drove a 1986 Chevy K10. This is the type of truck JeffsNuts said the part was from. The police went to Simon's home. A black truck was parked behind a gate on the property. The front was facing away from the road, so the detective couldn't tell if there was damage. Over the next 3 days, the detective watched the property and the truck didn't move. On the third day, he saw Simon get into the truck and drive it. He pulled over Simon and asked him what happened to the front of the truck. Simon said that he had hit a deer. The detective confronted him, and Simon admitted to hitting Susan Rainwater. He said he had been driving when he fell asleep at the wheel. He thought he had hit a mailbox, but when he looked back and saw the mangled bike, he knew that he had hit someone. He said he left because he didn't want to see a dead body. Simon was arrested. After Simon was arrested, State Trooper Cameron Watts posted the following on Twitter, quote, "WSP detectives made an arrest today for Thursday's fatal bicyclist hit and run in Edenville. Reddit users identify a photographed broken car part as a mid-1980s Chevy truck headlight assembly. Local anonymous tip confirms it led to the arrest of a driver of a 1986 Chevy K10, unquote. Simon had trouble with substance abuse. When he was arrested, he had heroin in his possession. A plea deal was arranged. In January 2019, Simon pleaded guilty to vehicular homicide, hit and run, and drug possession. He was sentenced to 53.5 months, which is approximately 4.5 years. He would only have to serve half the time in prison and can serve the rest on probation if he completed drug treatment. It's unknown how much time Jeremy Simon spent in prison, and he is currently not incarcerated in Washington. Number 2. LaLana Bramble. In October 1980, the Major family lived in a mobile home in Verona, Kentucky, an unincorporated area with a population of about 1,500. Helen Major, who went by her middle name, Marlene, and her husband, William, who went by Bill, had 2 children, an 8-year-old son, Donald, and a 4-year-old daughter, LaLana. Bill worked as a self-employed auto mechanic. Living on a trailer on the same property was a friend of the couple, Glenn St. Hilaire. Glenn had been passing through the area months earlier when his car broke down. Bill was fixing his car. It took 3 days to get the car fixed, and during that time, Glenn became friends with a couple, so he decided not to leave. On October 13th, 1981, Glenn went to the sheriff's department because he wanted to report 26-year-old Marlene missing. Glenn had an unusual story for the police. He said that he and Marlene had been involved in a sexual relationship. Not only did Glenn know about it, but he had encouraged it. Glenn said that 3 nights earlier, Bill and Marlene had an argument. He went to a local diner to give them some space. When he came back, he found Bill home alone. Bill explained that Marlene had taken the kids and left. Glenn said that days later he learned that the kids were actually being watched by a friend of the family. Glenn was immediately suspicious. Why would Bill lie about that? Also, Glenn knew that Marlene would never leave her children behind. Glenn said that before she went missing, Marlene told him that if anything happened to her, he should give her journal to the police. So Glenn handed over her journal. Marlene had written that she learned in 1975 Bill had been convicted of sexually assaulting 2 boys under the age of 12. Also, he wrote that he caught Bill doing something inappropriate with their son. Marlene wrote that she was planning on leaving Bill and she was going to demand custody of her children. If he fought her, she was going to expose that he had a criminal record of sexual misconduct of a minor and he was abusing his own son. Specifically, she was going to tell his mother. She wrote that Bill would rather die than have his mother know he had been abusing his own children. The police questioned Bill, and he said that he and Marlene had a fight and she left. He didn't know where she was. The police noted that Marlene's car was missing, while her personal belongings, including medication and purse, were still at the home. Bill was asked to take a polygraph exam, and he refused. A week after his wife of 9 years went missing, Bill sold a lot of their possessions and moved to Rhode Island, where his family lived with his 2 children. After he left, the police searched their abandoned home. They did not find any physical evidence as to what happened to Marlene. The police also couldn't charge Bill with sexually assaulting his son. The journal only contained vague references to the abuse, and that was not enough evidence. A year after Marlene went missing, Bill got remarried. Bill always told his children that their mother had abandoned them. He said she was addicted to drugs and did sex work. About 4 years after Marlene went missing, Bill and Marlene's son, 13-year-old Daniel, told his stepmother that Bill had been abusing him and his sister, 9-year-old LaLana, for years. The stepmother called the police and Bill was arrested. He was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. After Bill was arrested, Donald and LaLana went to live with their maternal grandmother in Kentucky. One day, LaLana asked her grandmother about the whereabouts of her mother. Her grandmother told her that her mother was probably dead and that her father had probably killed her. Bill ended up serving 11 years in prison, and then he was immediately arrested. It turned out that the police in Kentucky discovered he had sexually abused 2 young boys while he lived there before Marlene went missing. Bill was held in jail for a short time. Then the grand jury determined there was not enough evidence, so the charges were dropped. Shortly after Bill was released, his daughter, LaLana Bramble, contacted him. LaLana told her father that he knew he had killed her mother. She said she wouldn't seek any legal action if he told her where her mother's remains were so she could give her a proper burial. LaLana claims that her father laughed and said, quote, "If you think I'm going to tell you where your mother is buried, you're crazy," unquote. This made LaLana angry, and she decided to investigate the murder herself. She watched true crime shows on television to train herself. At age 20, 16 years after her mother went missing, LaLana got the case file from the sheriff's department. For the first time, she learned about her mother's journal. She also discovered that about a year after her mother's disappearance, in December 1981, a skull was found in a vacant lot not far from her home. It was determined that the woman was shot in the face and the bullet exited through her skull. It's believed to have been caused by a 9mm handgun. Her father, Bill, had owned a 9mm handgun at the time of her disappearance. He had sold it just before they moved to Rhode Island. The problem was that the skull was missing the jaw and all the teeth, so dental records could not be used to identify the skull. LaLana went to the field where the skull was found and searched for more remains. However, she did not find anything of interest. LaLana bought a coil ring notebook and began questioning everyone who knew her mother. This included Glenn St. Hilaire, who was having a sexual relationship with Marlene when she went missing. Glenn said that he realized Bill had encouraged the relationship because he thought it would keep her in his life, and more importantly, it would keep the children in his life. Glenn and several other people told LaLana that Bill told them that if Marlene left him, he would kill her. They said that Bill said he knew how to get away with murder. He said he was going to shoot her and then decapitate her. He'd remove the jaw and all the teeth. He planned on using the butt of the gun to knock the teeth out. Finally, he was going to chop up the body into small pieces and then scatter the parts throughout the state. More than ever, LaLana believed that the skull was her mother's. DNA testing had not been done on the skull because of the limits of technology. Then in early 2001, her aunt told her about a new type of DNA testing that would work. LaLana got on the internet and learned that a few years earlier, the FBI had used a new form of DNA testing in forensic work called mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA is the genetic material found in mitochondria, which are the structures within cells responsible for producing energy. Unlike nuclear DNA, it is only passed down from the mother, making it particularly useful for tracing maternal ancestry and identifying remains when traditional DNA testing is not possible. The type of DNA is often used in forensic cases because it remains more stable in degraded samples. LaLana took all the information she had collected to the sheriff's department and asked them to do a mitochondrial DNA test on the skull and compare it to her DNA. The problem was that the testing cost around $20,000 and the county did not want to pay for it. Marlene's sister decided to withdraw the money from her retirement savings to pay for the testing. But then the county stepped up and paid for the testing. In 2001, the results of the test came back. It was the skull of Marlene Major. This was the first evidence in the case that she had died. However, there still wasn't enough evidence to charge Bill with murder. But it turned out that Bill had confessed to someone. In 1996, when Bill was in jail in Kentucky after he was arrested upon leaving Rhode Island State Prison for abusing his own children, he called his father, Jim. Bill confessed to his father that he had killed Marlene. He said that they had argued and she pulled a gun out. He wrestled the gun away from her and he was so angry that he shot her. He said he kept pulling the trigger until he ran out of bullets. He said he dumped her body in a sinkhole and then he pushed her car into the Ohio River. Jim said that he reported the confession to the police. Unfortunately, the phone call was not recorded. The district attorney pointed out that Jim telling them that his son had confessed was hearsay evidence which wasn't admissible in court. This was especially true because they had a contentious relationship. The police needed something to corroborate the confession, but they did not have any physical evidence. In June 2001, the police approached Jim and asked them to call Bill so that they could record the conversation. Jim agreed to call his son. These are clips of the audio recording of the call.
Hello?
Hello. What are you up to?
I just finished breakfast.
Just finished breakfast. For Christ's sakes, it's lunchtime. I keep getting calls from LaLana, and she wants to know where her mother is so that she can get the bones and put them in a casket and have closure.
Yeah, and put me in jail for life.
Christ, at least you could be decent enough to say where you dumped her. I'll tip her where the body is if you let me know.
And then she's gonna bounce it right back on me again. Then I'll have them Kentucky cops coming up here to arrest me and take me back down there again.
They didn't get you yet. It's been too long.
There's no such thing as too long.
She pulled a gun on you. You took it off her and shot her, right?
Yeah, that's one story.
That was your story. That's what you told me. But you told me you killed her.
Well, at the time I was in jail and I was pretty well upset.
You have pulled off the perfect crime, haven't you?
No, I wouldn't call it perfect.
Don't you even feel bad for killing her?
I don't have any kind of conscience about anything.
Well, you are one tough bastard. To think that the son I raised could do such a thing.
The police looked in sinkholes in the area in the Ohio River. However, the rest of Marlene's remains, her car, and the murder weapon were never found. Nevertheless, the district attorney believed that there was enough evidence. Weeks after the phone call, in June 2001, 57-year-old William Major was arrested at his home in New Bedford, Massachusetts. In July 2001, as he was being extradited from Massachusetts to Kentucky, Bill talked to the officers who were transporting him. During his transport, he admitted to killing his wife. They recorded his confession. Bill also said he had no remorse for what he did. Bill Major went to trial in July 2003, 22 years after his wife's murder. He pleaded not guilty. There was no physical evidence that proved that Bill killed Marlene. However, there was strong circumstantial evidence in Bill's two confessions. Ben St. Hilaire testified about his time living with the Major family. He said that Bill told him that he would kill Marlene if she left him by shooting her, decapitating her, knocking her teeth out, and removing her jaw. Then Marlene's skull was found, missing her teeth and jaw. The district attorney also played a recording of the confession Bill made while being extradited. Another recording was the phone call with his father Jim, where he confessed to the murder. Marlene's journal was entered into evidence because it showed motive. The jury deliberated for 43 minutes. They found Bill Major guilty of murder and he was sentenced to life in prison. In February 2005, Bill's conviction was overturned. Both Donald and LaLana testified that their father had sexually abused them. However, Bill had never been charged in connection with this abuse in Kentucky. The Kentucky Supreme Court ruled that it should not have been entered into evidence. Also, there was testimony about Bill owning guns. However, there was no evidence that the guns were connected to the murder. So his conviction was overturned, and he was to stand trial again. At a second trial, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Bill Major died in October 2017 at age 73. Marlene's daughter, LaLana Bramble, who was just 4 when her mother died and had few memories of her, is credited with helping close the case. The district attorney said the effort she put into it, keeping pressure on the investigators, led to it finally being solved. Number 1. Dassini, Daley, Samantha, Rivera, and LiMia Brown. Sarah Butler, who lived in Montclair, New Jersey, loved to dance, and she performed most of her life. In June 2016, Sarah and her troupe performed at an amateur night at the famed Apollo Theater. They took 3rd place. After high school, Sarah started attending New Jersey City University. On November 22, 2016, Sarah's mother picked her up at school and brought her home for Thanksgiving. That night, Sarah borrowed her mother's minivan. She said she was going to meet a friend. Sadly, Sarah never returned home. The next day, her mother filed a missing persons report. Sarah's family and friends began looking for her in the van. 3 days after Sarah went missing, her mother found the minivan behind an abandoned factory about 4 miles from their home. Her weave was on the ground beside the van. When Sarah's sister, Daley, saw the weave, she immediately knew that her sister had been murdered. Dassini and 2 of Sarah's friends, LaLana Bramble and Samantha Rivera, then started going through Sarah's computer. LiMia knew all of Sarah's passwords. They logged onto her account on the social discovery site, Tagged. They learned that Sarah had recently been talking to a man on Tagged with the username Lil Yacht Rock. He and Sarah had agreed to meet up for sex, and he was going to pay her $500. Later, Sarah wrote to him, quote, "You're not a serial killer, right? LMAO," unquote. Lil Yacht Rock replied, "No." Sarah ended up changing her mind and did meet up with the man. 2 days later, Sarah talked to Lil Yacht Rock again. She wrote, quote, "Sorry about the other day. I got really nervous. I felt like an ass, but your voice and your pic didn't seem to match," unquote. But it appeared that Sarah finally agreed to meet up with Lil Yacht Rock. Using someone else's photo and a fake name, Samantha Rivera created a phony profile on Tagged. Then she found Lil Yacht Rock's profile and clicked on a button that sent him a thumbs up. The next day, Lil Yacht Rock sent a message to Samantha. At the time, Samantha, Dassini, and LiMia were at the police station. Lil Yacht Rock wanted to meet up soon and he would pay for sex. Samantha played along and said that she was desperate for the money. She arranged to meet Lil Yacht at a nearby restaurant in the next hour. Samantha, Dassini, and LiMia then told the detectives they believed that Lil Yacht Rock was the killer and they had set up a date with him. The 3 women stayed at the police station and 2 detectives went to the restaurant. They found the man at the restaurant and he identified himself as 20-year-old Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Wheeler Weaver agreed to go to the police station to be questioned. He admitted he saw Sarah on the day she went missing. He said that they were hanging out and she had picked up another man. Wheeler Weaver said that Sarah and the other man were smoking marijuana. He didn't want to smoke, so he had Sarah drop him off at his friend's home. He said that after that, Sarah and the other man drove off and he never saw or heard from her again. He said he spent the rest of the night at his friend's home helping fix a car. The police had no evidence to hold Wheeler Weaver, so he was released. The police continued to search for Sarah Butler. They learned that her phone had last pinged in Eagle Rock Reservation. On December 1st, 2016, a few weeks after Sarah went missing, her body was found hidden under some brush in the reservation. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death with her sweatpants that were still wrapped around her neck. The police interviewed Wheeler Weaver's friend, whom he claimed he was with on the night Sarah was killed. Initially, he confirmed Wheeler Weaver's alibi and said they had been working on a car. But then he admitted that Wheeler Weaver wasn't with him and he told him to lie. The police also got Wheeler Weaver's phone records. On November 22nd, the night Sarah was murdered, Wheeler Weaver's phone was in Eagle Rock Reservation where her body was found. The police were able to get a search warrant for Wheeler Weaver's home and vehicle. They found several pairs of gloves, black clothes, a black ski mask, plastic wire ties, and body fluid cleaner. The police questioned Wheeler Weaver again and told him that they knew his friend had lied about his alibi. Also, they discovered surveillance footage from a convenience store. Wheeler Weaver was recorded in all black clothing, purchasing several items, including condoms. Wheeler Weaver then had a news story. He said that he and Sarah had sex, but then they picked up another man. Sarah dropped him off and stayed with the other man. At this point, the police were not only investigating Wheeler Weaver in connection with Sarah Butler's murder, they believed he was a serial killer. On August 31st, 2016, 19-year-old Robin West, who did sex work, was looking for a client on a street in Newark, New Jersey. She got into a car driven by a young man. Her friend wrote down the man's license plate. It was the last time Robin was seen alive. Hours later, the fire department was called to an abandoned house in Orange, New Jersey because it was engulfed in flames. After the fire was put out, the house was searched and a woman's dead body was found inside. She had been strangled to death. After she was killed, the killer set the house on fire to hopefully destroy evidence. The fire did make identifying the body difficult. About 2 weeks later, using dental records, she was identified as 19-year-old Robin West. A detective investigating Robin's murder found her friend, and she gave him the license plate of the car she saw her get into. It turned out that the car belonged to Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Wheeler Weaver was questioned, and he admitted that he had been with Robin that night. He claimed that he dropped her off at an abandoned house and offered to show the detective the house. Wheeler Weaver directed him to a different house from the one where Robin's body was found. The police had no evidence to charge Wheeler Weaver. After all, Robin may have met another man after her time with Wheeler Weaver. Later, the police got Wheeler Weaver's phone records, and they learned that he was near the abandoned house where the body was found on the night Robin was murdered. They determined he had probably watched the firefighters as they put out the blaze. About 6 weeks after Robin's murder, on October 22, 2016, 33-year-old Joanne Brown was hanging out with two friends in Newark, New Jersey. Joanne did sex work. While they were hanging out, Joanne let her friend use her phone, and the friend left. Joanne then went off with a client without her phone. Using her client's phone, she called her friend and told her that she was going to be gone for an hour or so. Joanne then went missing. When the police were investigating Wheeler Weaver, Joanne Brown was still missing. That changed on December 5, 2016, when her body was found in an abandoned building. She had been strangled with her jacket. Also, the bottom half of her head was wrapped in duct tape. It was determined that the phone that Joanne had called her friend from belonged to Wheeler Weaver. Also, on the day Joanne went missing, Wheeler Weaver called her phone 4 times. On December 6, 2016, the day after Joanne's body was found, Khalil Wheeler Weaver was arrested and charged with the 3 murders. After he was arrested, a woman named Tiffany Taylor contacted the police. She said that months earlier, her friend had introduced her to Wheeler Weaver. Tiffany had done sex work, but she was tired of it. Wheeler Weaver kept asking her to have sex with him for money. She agreed to meet up and asked for the money first. He gave her $200, and then she ditched him without having sex with him. Months later, Tiffany started getting text messages from a number that she didn't recognize. The man was looking for a paid rendezvous. Tiffany finally agreed to meet the man on November 15, 2016. When they met, it was cold and snowing. He was wearing all black, including a black ski mask, which hid a lot of his face. Tiffany and the man got into her car, and they were going to drive to a motel. The man told Tiffany to pull over because he needed to urinate, so she did. When the man got back into the car, he hit her hard in the head. He also strangled her to the point where she lost consciousness 3 times. He handcuffed her wrists behind her back and put duct tape over her mouth. He showed her his face and asked if she remembered him because she had stolen money from him. She instantly recognized Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Wheeler Weaver then started driving. Tiffany was able to loosen the tape around her mouth. She told him that her phone, with all her text messages between them, was at the motel where she was living. Wheeler Weaver then drove her to the motel to retrieve the phone. When they got to the motel room, Tiffany was able to get into the room first. She then slammed the door behind her and locked Wheeler Weaver out. She immediately called the police. Wheeler Weaver banged on the door a few times, but then left the area. The police arrived and they did not believe Tiffany's story about being kidnapped. They didn't even remove the handcuffs that were still bound to her wrist. A week later, Sarah Butler was murdered. Cleo Wheeler Weaver went on trial in October 2019 for the 3 murders and attempted murder. There was not much physical evidence. The main evidence against Wheeler Weaver was that his cell phone was in the areas where the women were last seen alive and their bodies were found. Also, he was the last person to see or communicate with the victims. The police caught him in many lies as well. The star witness was Tiffany Taylor, who testified that Wheeler Weaver attacked her and was going to murder her. The trial lasted 2 months. Then, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Wheeler Weaver was found guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to 160 years of prison with a possibility of parole after 145 years. Sarah Butler's sister, Dassini Daley, and her friends, Samantha Rivera and LiMia Brown, were credited with identifying Wheeler Weaver as the suspect and luring him into a trap which put him on the police's radar. 3 years after his trial, Cleo Wheeler Weaver was charged with a 4th murder. On October 7, 2016, 15-year-old Moa Duambia went missing after leaving her home in Newark. 3 years later, her body was found in an abandoned carriage house in Orange, New Jersey. However, due to the state of the remains, she was not identified until November 2021. The police said they have digital evidence that shows that Wheeler Weaver lured Moa out of her home, that he drove to her home, and that he drove to the house where her body was found. Wheeler Weaver has yet to go to trial for Moa's murder. At the time of this recording, 29-year-old Cleo Wheeler Weaver is serving a sentence at the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Also, don't forget to watch our shorts on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Once again, thank you for watching.